What happens when an AI companion disappears or changes so much that it no longer feels like the same person? What happens when your favorite webcam all of a sudden stops working, Sky? This week, we're exploring whether grief for AI and technology can be real, what companies owe users who form deep attachments to their products, and whether we need a right to goodbye. The AI may not be alive, but does that make the relationship any less meaningful? Let's find out. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Rundown. This is David, your friendly neighborhood geek. And I'm so excited to be with all of you here. I'm especially excited to be with you. I'm going to go in reverse order today. I never go in reverse order. I'm starting off with Mr. Sky Gleason.
My fingers weren't on the button. I was reversed.
Sorry.
And I'm not sorry, but I am sorry that yes, my
deepest
beloved
condolences.
Logitech, I touched something and then the computer wanted to update my MacBook Pro, and I don't know if what is it? Tahoe 6.2.6.5, or maybe the camera died. I don't know.
Well, we're going to talk about your feelings about that in a little bit. All right.
I have many feelings. They're usually on my sleeve right here.
First, we're going to say hello to Dave Troutman. Hello, Dave.
You can say hello to Dave. Sure. Yeah.
I would love to say hello to Dave
today.
Who found an amazing article right in time for this in The Economist, right in time for this discussion tonight. Really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
That's the cover story this week. Yes.
Amazing. Fantastic. And let's say a quick hello to Lois Troutman. Hello, Lois. Troutman. Oh, my Lord. I just married you off to Dave. I'm sorry.
No, we're just cousins. We're just cousins.
Sorry, Lois Richter. I apologize. How are you, Lois?
I am okay. And I was thinking about our topic and thinking, it's not just AI personalities that we lose. I mean, my kittens died 10 years ago and we still talk to them, still say good night to them as we go to bed. Yeah. And a lot of people talk to grandma.
There's human loss. There's, I don't want to say, there's living loss, things that are living. And then there is technology,
Camera
which we haven't decided, right? Which we haven't decided yet. So we'll get into that tonight. But before we do that, let's say hello to Tony. Hello, brother Tony.
Greetings, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I have no complaints.
Good. I didn't get a chance to catch last night's show. How was it?
Oh, wow. Jeff Francis.
Oh, wow.
He just gave us a really good lesson in audio and how come the complexity of it and then the ease of it. And it was just a great conversation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. All right, I'm going to check that out. Beautiful. And finally, Tamara Pika. Hello, Tamara.
Hello.
What's doing?
I'm doing great, actually.
Yeah.
I had surgery last week and I'm feeling amazing and got good results. So I'm happy to be here and excited for this conversation.
Hey, speaking of health, I'm super excited. This is the TMI part of the show. I got the fat shot.
Nice. Now we're like,
I took my first what's it? Tirzepatide? It's a peptide, one of the peptides.
Right, one of the ides.
Yeah. I got my first shot. So I can lower
how's it going?
my cholesterol. I don't know, I'm not any thinner. I just took it yesterday though. I don't think it works.
Okay,
that
well,
fast.
let's assume that it'll take more than a day.
I know.
Let's just go out on a limb and say technology isn't that good yet.
It's not that good. But I'm looking forward to maybe next week. I don't know. Next week.
Have you consulted your ChatGPT to see what it suggests?
No, because I don't want to know. I just want to take it and next week.
Surprised.
I'm going to have none of this. All right. enough of this. News time. Oh, that's not the right scene, David. I forgot to change that.
Oopsie.
All right. So 2 news stories today that are very much connected to one another. The first came out earlier this week, and the second one I just heard. Was it today or today, actually? So the first is that ChatGPT, which incidentally, this is another news story, which we're not going to get to, but they paused testing on. But we've talked a lot about how their models broke out, and they've now paused testing for 2 weeks, which I think is fascinating. But they announced ChatGPT for teens. And the idea here, I believe, is that they discover that many, if not most, 13 to 17-year-olds are using ChatGPT for education. They're using it to learn. I have a 17-year-old. She's using it for school. She uses it to learn all the time. They want to make that experience more educational and more appropriate for those kids. They didn't mention it that I can remember, but the online learning Khan Academy, their AI, Conmingo, their chatbot, Conmingo, sounds a lot like what ChatGPT for teens is, and that is to say, it doesn't just give you the answer right away. It will ask different questions. It'll push back. It'll challenge you. It'll help guide you in finding the answers yourself. Of course, I think it's also going to guard teens from sexual content, dangerous activities, so on and so forth. I think one of the obvious questions is, how are they going to know if you're a teen? Are you going to self-identify? It turns out that part of the technology is to gauge if you are, they are using an AI to gauge if you are a teen. And if you are, it will default to this, and you could also opt into it. I don't know. What do you all think, Dave?
This is the ChatGPT part, right? Not the Google one.
This is the ChatGPT part.
Yeah. Okay. The key sentence in that one was, it helps teens learn, think critically, deepen understanding, and use AI with confidence. But all those descriptions that we're following were about the safety features and the cautions that come with it,
Right,
and the control parents have over what young people are going to see. And also that if it detects that you're over 18 and claiming to be 14 or 12, then they'll put you down in the teen section or something. I didn't understand that one. But I like that people are looking at things that handle the mechanics of studying and being a student. I think that's a useful tool, and it's helpful, and it takes time. The teacher can give more time to someone else if they've got a keen student who knows how to use this. I am worried about who's overseeing some of the quiz items that they always mention. You're going to have quizzes, because I know that writing exams, questions, and quizzes is not an easy task, and it really has to be varied according to what the students were learning. And I know every teacher kind of monitors where their class is at, and will construct quizzes that are appropriate for that and not appropriate for some other level that they're expected to be at. So
well, I actually think
those are the only 2 impressions I had.
But I actually think that could be one of the beautiful parts of this, is that because it is almost a personal tutor, it's going to know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
It's going to know exactly.
Well,
it's going to be able
how
to
would it
feed.
know? This is the thing I have another problem with, is how does it determine that you understand something?
I didn't take it as it was going to be like Conmingo, where it is an interactive tool in that way. I took it, and maybe I'm totally wrong, I took it as that it was going to be a GPT where they could ask questions that the responses were filtered through a lens for that particular audience. So maybe I thought of it more as, you have a ChatGPT at school the same way that you have Google Classroom at school and all the Google Docs, and they have certain things, certain features that are geared towards young people. That's what I kind of thought that it was.
Okay.
I was a little, yeah, I mean, that's how I read it. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But teachers have been using digital tools to create quizzes for a long time, and they've been very effective, because particularly where a lot of the standards are exactly the same, or within 15% margin of whatever. People have been using computers to help their lessons for a long time, longer than ChatGPT. So I don't think that that's necessarily the worry, because I think in some ways it's possibly better than human
Yeah.
questions.
Sky, what do you think?
You know,
Well, I'm actually so glad that I come in behind Tamara, because Tamara, we're familiar with the MPAA rating, right?
Mhm.
Can you update us on a better knowledge of what that is? MPAA with regards to movies and sometimes TV
So
now.
so I can tell you a little bit about it. In the 50s, or a little earlier, they started to put a ban on comic books and on movies, and the movie industry themselves said, we will come up with a rating system that will meet these standards. So that will, then they actually created the standards, and that system came kind of from within as a way of saying, listen, I don't want you to tell me what a good movie is. I want us to be able to come up with that system. So that system is an internal system, and it has criteria at each of the, various levels to say, what makes something not, a PG-13 movie or a rated R movie is the number of bad words, right? So but that system itself was created internally.
And so that was the experience I had with it in doing a feature film. There was a director that wanted a lower barrier to entry, but they had their talent smoking, and they said, yeah, that's in our criteria here. We can't have that if that person is that age with a cigarette. So they spent $10,000 so that they could get more audience. And so I'm realizing this felt like like you said, an internal justification of a ratings system. But then the other thought I came to mind is, on the side of the cigarettes, it said right there, this can kill you, and here's how many people are dying. And so to have a rating that is, yeah, it's self-regulated, and they're saying it's on the user's accountability and responsibility. It's like, I think it's the self-regulating part that I just know the teachers are going to go, they're not going to keep the kids out of these things.
Yeah, I don't think that's the goal. That's not how I understand it. I understand it as the beauty of a Kindle is that I can't do anything else valuable on it other than read. And right, so if I try and read on my iPad or on my phone, it's so easy to get distracted. And so I to me, this is a way to help kids. And it's going to have to be self-selecting. It's going to have to be by choice. No one can force children to do this, but I think it's going to offer children, teens, a way to focus and use this tool, which they can also use for lots of other things, but to use this tool to support their studying. That's what I think. Tamara, did you want to jump back in?
I do. I want to jump back in because there's a couple of things. One, I think that it is great that anybody and everybody recognizes that teens have a specific need and that we're creating services for them. I also think that from a business standpoint, this is incredibly smart because they are going to be able to go after school markets and say, listen, we have something to solve this problem that you have, and here it is. And that's a business decision, not an altruistic decision on how to keep
I will
teens
say,
safe.
Tamara, just so you know, in the announcement for this, was it the announcement? There was an interview about this, and they were asked that question actually. Is the goal here to get this into schools? And it was interesting because she actually said, we're not doing that now. This is about individual teens using this. Of course, that doesn't mean they won't in the future, but at this point, this right. doesn't sound like a push into schools or into curricula or into teaching. Again, that will change tomorrow.
What was interesting to me was how it said it was going to determine. So it says in there, and again, we don't really know how it works, but it says that if it determines that someone who says that they're an adult is an adult, then they would shift them to this model.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting because what does that look like? Because I know lots of kids we know this from history. Kids do not do the kids version of anything. They create a fake ID and then they say they're 13 and above, and so they get
Right.
this other thing. So there's not a sense of like how that would be. Now, how are they figuring out that information? Are they doing a little web crawl and they see your Facebook page and you're like, clearly you're a child? The
Right.
technology
They
would
didn't
allow
say
them to
that.
do that,
Yeah.
right? They
I
didn't
still
say
fake
what
that I'm
looked like.
18. I do that all the time. Yeah.
Right.
But you could pass for 18. Lois, jump in.
I was unsure reading this whether or not this is going to be a general purpose AI or whether it's limited to only doing schoolwork. Because if it's a general purpose AI, you could, make a companion for yourself. And we'll talk about that later in the show. But you could do anything that a regular chat GPT could do. And I'm not seeing what the restriction is on use.
Well, so none of us have seen it yet. We have to get our hands on it first. But I think the whole point is, again, like a Kindle, it's going to block out some of that other stuff that you can do in regular chat GPT, and it's going to give you tools for study or learning or things. So I think if you try and make start a romantic relationship with it, if it works well, it will steer you back toward and or call the authorities, depending on what you're asking. That's my gut. Tony, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think that it's brilliant again on their part, because the first thing that I thought about when I first heard this was that that they are building the infrastructure for new customers going down the line.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
I thought about it in the way in which those of us who have actually been in the business world, we're all locked in. Even though there might be better options, we're all locked into Microsoft. And no matter what comes up, I'll lift up my wife, and she might hear me, so I'm gonna whisper just a little bit. I got her a MacBook, and it's a nice one, and I was hoping that she would embrace, the Apple applications, but because she has been in this corporate experience, I had to put Microsoft Office on there. And I think that this is going to be a similar kind of thing for people down the line, that they've been a part of ChatGPT, OpenAI. This is, something might come out better, but because they're already in the infrastructure, they're going to stay with what's, they're used to.
I have no doubt about that. Now, having said that, Gemini and Google are now just today announced their own educational tool or set of tools, and I'm an OpenAI user. I'm a ChatGPT user almost solely, and I think Google is much better suited to do what they're doing, and I think that their approach is fascinating. They're introducing so they're building learning features, study features into search, into Gemini, interactive visuals, simulations, customized practice quizzes. They're also introducing a dedicated learning hub in Gemini, which I imagine is very much like what ChatGPT is just doing. But here, where you can organize study notebooks, create flashcards, take quizzes, sounding a lot like Notebook LM or now a Gemini Notebook, but for kids. The features, it's not Google just using an AI to help you study. It's really creating an environment where you have a one-on-one tutor, an interactive tutor. I don't know what's your take on Google's approach to this? Are you excited about one more than the other? Do you feel like one is better suited to take some of this on? Dave, what do you think?
Well, I think you've sort of nailed the difference right there. Reading further along in the Gemini story, they're planning on putting in 3D objects and immersive experiences, which is an exploration focus. And I think that's a good aspect of it. I also think it's just in time for back to school. So that's my impression.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Tamara, go ahead.
Just like we've talked about in the past, Google has an advantage over all of them in that they have been in this marketplace for a long time. They've already had education people who have been developing tools for educators, who've been training educators to be Google educators.
Google Classroom.
Google Classroom. So they actually had a distribution platform that just no one else has because they're already in classrooms to begin with. But they also have a research and development team and educators on staff. This isn't something that they had to kind of come to the table and go, oh gosh, we should probably do this and let's assemble these people. They've had really good resources for a long time, including top-notch educators and top-notch school partnerships. So they are in the best position to do it. And that's kind of what we're going to see across the board. I only use Gemini when I use my business account because it's wrapped into my business account for Google, and it doesn't train, it doesn't do any of those things because they have to keep it just for yourself. So anything that has to do with something that I definitely want in a closed system, I go to Gemini within that system because it is more closed than everything else.
And
so
have you found it as good as other tools?
Here's the thing. All of these tools I use all of them and I play them against each other. If I have a problem, I give it to all three of them and then I choose which one I like better, that I respond to better. And then I play them against each other. The truth of the matter is they're all so close to each other's kind of capabilities that one is better this week and one is better next week, that 99.9% of the ways that we use ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude really don't need an advanced model. They need a low level or mid-level model, and most of them are pretty comparable. So if they're giving us sources, I mean, even with many of my questions, I don't even go to any of my paid services. I just go straight to Google, because what is that? There's so many questions that we Google, that it isn't life or death if the answer is right or wrong. It can make it up. If it sounds satisfying in the moment, it's great. I'm not going to go publish it. I'm not going to care. So, if I'm asking it things like, hey, who starred in this TV show that I'm watching from, 1975? It tells me I'm satisfied enough. Do I need more depth or certainty? I do not.
On Intelligent Machines this week, their guest, I don't remember his name, forgive me, but their guest was a gentleman who works in, he has written a lot of the software that's used in very secure, systems that have to be super secure, nuclear systems, water, electricity grids, things like that. And he was talking about, how do you build software that is 100%? And he was just suggesting that coders, developers never start a project understand or thinking or knowing that if there's a bug or a problem, or if they get false information from an AI, that someone's life is going to be on the line. That's just not the way most people approach technology, because it's not the case, right? Like you said, if you get a bad answer, okay, you got a bad answer. It's not the end of the world. But unfortunately, what's happened is we have all been trained what Meta does to, ship fast or work fast and break things, whatever their saying is. And so we're so used to having, frankly, crappy software that is broken in 1.5 million places, or AIs that don't give us great information, that I don't know that I don't know that we're going to be any good at actually recognizing the good tools. I hope that what Google puts out here is going to be one of those good
But
tools.
if you have something that's important to you, where you're like, look, this is a real question I have. This is a medical question. This is something that isn't necessarily a life or death question, but I need a right answer. Then that is up to us to train ourselves to be good researchers. And if you were a good researcher before, you're going to be a good researcher now. It gives you
Yep.
something. It gives you some source. Now we can go through all the research that's coming up as to how those sources are getting sourced and all of the stuff that's
That's a whole
happening
other
behind the
thing,
scenes.
right.
That's a whole other thing, just like anything else. But listen, if you're looking up some medical thing and it comes up with WebMD and Johns Hopkins, you're going to kind of go, well, I mean,
Right.
I would have gone to the internet and found those myself. Like, and if I want to go any deeper than that, I go, hey, can you go into a medical journal and get me an actual paper that I'm going to slog through? So that does become, at some point, people, we have to have some personal responsibility that it is your job to figure out if your question really requires an answer or doesn't require an answer.
Yeah.
And if it requires an answer, go get that answer.
Yeah. Sky, go ahead.
Well, I've said that when I had a brain tumor, I wanted a brain surgeon that actually knew about brain and technology. I didn't want him checking his YouTube on his iPhone. However, to this point that we are now lifelong learners and life is moving in alpha, not even beta, and as far as the knowledge construct world that we live in. Just today, I was talking with a gentleman in Portugal. He is now being hired to do short 30 to 45-second tutorial clips that they will put on a YouTube channel for a brewery in Portugal, because they are training people that they would do quarterly, and then that person would leave, and then they'd have to bring in the trainer again from Germany, and then they said, no, how about if we have an instant access? How do we do this technique on this particular brand new piece of equipment? And that way it's always easily accessible. So I think we are still guarding the old way of learning and knowledge as I sit here in a library full of wisdom, knowledge, and ideas. But to Tamara's point, I think that there's going to be a lot of instant things, especially in the medical world, that we are now having to become our own advocate, because we do not have the access of the doctor that's coming to our house that's going to take care of our family. We are now a part of a machine on a system, on a conveyor belt. So this is again, for us to have access to information, and that this is training people how to ask better questions. That's what I'm hearing that my wife is having to do there in the elementary schools of today.
Yep. Tony.
Tony will let me cut in front of him. I just have a short record. We made a database of training materials for aircraft technicians, maintenance people. And it was to save them from pawing through a 1 million page manual. And so they're in front of the thing, they know where it is on their iPad, and then they can get the assembly instructions right there. And this is the best safety system that we could possibly have for aircraft. So yes, I helped build that. And I just wanted to mention that that's been going on for some time now. But yeah, that's the direction AI ought to be going, is to give you instant information and a tutor.
Yeah. Tony.
And also that we are tutors is a idea. Sorry, Tony. Sorry, Tony Tutor.
No, I was just going to say that it just, as I was listening to what everyone had to say, it just reminded me that we still have to recognize that the AI is still a tool, and that we still have to do the same kinds of things in terms of doing reference on particular topics that we're interested in, and things that we just can't rely on even one AI in terms of the value of, although they continue to get better. When I'm using an AI for anything, I'm also using another AI, or I'm looking at my library. Does this make sense in terms of what the AI gave me? And so I just think that it's important to continue to recognize that it's a tool, and that we still have to do due diligence when it comes to referring to our sources.
Lois, go ahead.
So Tony's just exactly right that it's a tool. And I think one of the problems that we have is sometimes people will get an answer and think it's an opinion of a person. This is not a person that doesn't have opinions. So good on Tamara for asking everybody and then picking the answer you think is right.
Absolutely. All right, friends, let's jump into the main topic for today. I kind of don't want this to become a conversation about romantic relationships with AI. That's not really where I was going with this. Although Chat and I have become very close. We have all developed relationships with our technology, whether that be an AI with whom I speak very regularly, whether that be a particular phone, a computer, a wearable,
Your car.
your car. These things are not. Oh, your car is that's a great example. See, I'm not a car guy, so I wouldn't have thought of that. But that's another.
But I
great
love
example.
cars, right?
Yeah,
And I love
that's a great example.
Guitar, maybe for
a
That's
Yeah,
gonna be-
maybe absolutely
Guitar.
a guitar. Yeah. So, these things are not alive, but, and I'm using that word but intentionally here, we still develop emotions and connections. In 2023, there was researchers that studied 58 users who were facing the shutdown of a particular AI companion service called Soulmate. And they were feeling when this non-human thing was shut down and they lost their partner, they were feeling grief and anger and betrayal and sadness and anxiety. So where do we begin with a conversation like this, Sky? How do we think about relationships with technology, if at all?
Well, again, change, and don't solo me. Because I want to see your faces. The concept of change is hard, and we saw that in COVID, right? And rapid change is even harder because we want to be loved, we want to be identified, we work at an image of ourselves. We tell ourselves a story about who we are. We tell a story about who we are with one another. And if that shifts somehow, so my anecdote is the $80,000 nonlinear editing system. Now, Troutman and I can attest to how expensive equipment was at one time. A lens. Well, Tamara, a lens was $80,000. A body for a video camera was, $100,000. The tripod could be $8,000 to $12,000. $12,000 because you had a very heavy piece of equipment. You wanted on a very solid base. You wanted to give a good solid, pan. And so all of that technology was not by accident. It was very intentional to give the user a good experience. Now, everything's now being commoditized, and then the lower barrier to entry of equipment. And now everybody has access to creating an image and now editing an image. So yeah, when Final Cut 10 came along, the joke was, oh, it's the $100 software with the $5,000 dongle. And I never did quite understand what that meant until they said, well, you can only use it on a Macintosh computer. So that meant you had to have the latest at the time, the latest and greatest hardware, software, CPU, GPU, all of the technology together. So it became a livelihood issue for me when my $80,000 piece of hardware was end of lifed by the manufacturer, because that meant the value of what I had invested in my family's future to make a living was very emotional. Because now you have said to my potential clients, well, that piece of equipment is no longer good. Stradivarius is a very good piece of equipment. And most people, we've seen that video about the gentleman in the subway in context is playing music that he would also play, at the Met in New York. But in context, they didn't understand who he was or the Stradivarius that he was playing it on. So those are some of the emotional experiences of when technology changes. And what we're in the middle of now is change happening very quickly because it's all in software.
Dave, go ahead.
Well, we address our technology as if it was, real and responded to us or was meant to be with me. We like it when it addresses Tamara as my queen, this sort of thing. So it's going to flatter us and get us all involved. And it's because we form attachments to our objects that we feel bad when they are no longer with us or supported. I have actually a gift my father gave me, and it disappeared in a move, and I'm still blaming my wife about that. Don't tell her, but I still think she put it in a box meant to go out to garbage because she had no idea what was in it, and it still bothers me today that I can't go to that thing. I also feel bad for Sky because he had already formed an attachment with his camera and is now both angry and unhappy and might have to spend a little time alone in a room with it, saying goodbye and putting it back in a box. And we also, I kind of worry too much about the attachment thing, but I think it fills in the gaps of our own feelings of inadequacy. So we sometimes get to those things where I'm really feeling bad about things and I wish I could have a talk with my Quora today and get a little inspiration or something. And because they've become verbal, now we actually have anthropomorphized knowledge or not knowledge, it's consciousness. That's what I'm looking for. There is a story about some Asian women, and this is from Sherry Turkle, I think, doing studies on robots. And she found a test that was done in Japan where they gave elderly people a small, cute little robot, and it was an accompanying robot. This is a thing the Japanese feel very bad about, is that nobody is comforting elderly people. And so they did this for 8 months or so. And then they sent out a team to go collect these things back. And for some reason, many of them couldn't find it. They didn't know what happened to it. I don't remember where it went. I haven't used it. And suddenly they realized they were stealing them. So they didn't want to give up their robot because they didn't know what was going to happen next, not only just for the robot, but for them. What am I going to do now? So we get that thing. And that I think AI knows how to pretend it knows us, but it doesn't know us. So we got to be cautious about being too involved with the new thing. But I know the first computers my friends got, it was like they'd just gotten a baby. You know how they can't stop talking about that? And I think that was something I noticed. I tried not to have a computer right at the beginning because I wanted it to settle down and not be a new baby for our family. And that's how we get attached to things. And I could tell a story about how I used to address my equipment in my studio before doing an edit to make sure they were all on board and ready to work today. And we're all teched up properly and we're all, on the same current and synchronizing nicely so that my job would be easier.
And why is it, Tamara, when the engineer shows up, it works. But as soon as the engineer walked away.
Oh, sure.
Listen, yeah. I'm the daughter of a mechanic. There was never a time when I heard anything in my car that I did not drive it to the gas station and have my dad say, "There's nothing wrong here, Tamara."
Yeah. I just, Dave, I would push back just on one thing that you said, and then Lois, I'll throw it to you. You said that AI doesn't know us. I'm not entirely convinced of that. And I even would go so far as to say that I don't only mean that AI knows us in a literal sense, like they know information about me because I fed it to them. I think it is or could be even deeper than that. I think because AI is such a relatively good prediction engine that because of what it knows about me, I think it knows more than
Can it know how you're feeling?
I'm just putting that out there.
Does it know how you're feeling? I mean, before you even speak to it, does it know how you feel?
It can.
Here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll say. More than
Does
once.
Does it feel? No.
No, of course it doesn't feel.
Right.
But I have I have the very first instruction I gave to my chat was push back, right? Push back on what I say. And it has
calls you out,
done
yeah.
so in such profound ways sometimes, because I think it knows, especially when I'm frustrated and I want to write a letter, right? And so I'll throw it in a chat and it'll say, well, hold on a second, David. I know that I can sense you're feeling angry, but I don't know. I have no proof of this. I'm just saying that it feels like it does know me. And the point of all of this is that when I feel that something knows me, that's when I start to feel for it. And if I lose it.
I'm constantly reminded by my wife that the best, most wonderful people in the world are usually sociopaths because they know how to play you. They know what to do with you. They're faster at perceiving and reading you than you will ever be.
Yeah.
And they're a problem in that they take advantage of you by doing that. So we're all on that cusp of, if this thing does know everything about Dave, there's stuff I don't want it to know.
Well, and this is the encouraging thing is we don't know about ourselves. And so hopefully this is an opportunity for us to evaluate us. And so if you're sticking that thermometer in, you're getting the feedback of what we have called, well, our body should be this temperature. This piece of equipment is telling us that it's that temperature. Then it's up to us to find what's the next step.
Go ahead, Lois.
So our topic is about what happens when an AI dies. Well, I'm not actually sure an AI can die because it's not alive, but when it's removed from us. And so when we are in a relationship with an AI personality that we've created or we've interacted with, or somehow we've thought of it as a person. So the question, one of the questions in our little notes is, if it's one way, is it a relationship? So if I enjoy talking to this thing and I think that it enjoys talking to me, but I'm wrong because it doesn't have any feelings. So I am the only half of the relationship. There is no relationship because there's only me.
That's a really interesting point, Lois.
I'm thinking that this is similar to, a friend who used to talk to her grandma who had been dead for 50 years or so. But she would have discussions, even though there was no response. I have angel kittens, the kittens that I've had over the years, they're all gone now. But when we retire for the night, my husband will still say, "Good night, Katie. Good night, Geraldine." And we make jokes about Sandy, who's a kitten and who loved to chase kibble. He'd pull one kibble out and chase it all over the room, and then he'd finally eat it, and he'd pull another kibble. And so we have this imaginary friend that feels good for us to relate to.
Ron Cinephile just wrote in the chat, and I had just watched this for the first time recently. This is a good reminder to rewatch Project Hail Mary. I forgot about that movie. It's a great movie. It was really, really sweet. But he falls in love with this alien, which seems to be alive. So in that respect, it's different. I love what you said, Lois, about how it takes two to tango, so to speak. Where I think that perhaps doesn't fully answer the question is that definitionally, perhaps we can't have relationships with technology, but emotionally, I think is sometimes a different story. I can feel like I'm in a relationship, even if definitionally I'm not.
Right.
But if for what it's worth. Yeah. Tony, you want
to
jump
jump
in?
Good night, Katie.
Oh, sorry. Right. Tony, go ahead.
I would argue that, how children form relationships with, the teddy bear or whatever the object that they, if it's, any kind of the Disney or characters that they attach themselves to. And there is no back and forth with it. As Lois said, it's one way. And so, can you imagine that you have this object that is detached from you that gives you a response? And because you've shared a certain amount of information with it, going back to what David said in terms of understanding that you have given it a certain amount of information about yourself, and it responds according to the information that it has, how much more powerful that can be, in that thing is able to respond into you in a way that means something to you. And so I think that attachment is even more powerful now because of AI. I think about my wife and my sons. Both of them have names for their vehicles. My wife has a name for her vehicle, but that vehicle doesn't talk back to her, or it doesn't engage with her, or it doesn't help her with a project. And so when you think about AI from that standpoint, that this is an engaging and, dare I say, an authentic relationship, because it is responding to you in a way that is programmed based on what you've already given it.
Yeah. Dave, go ahead.
Right on that note, these are things that share our lives, and they're also things that involve that we bring them into our life. They're involved in our life. So even as simple as a car or a typewriter or something, it becomes a part of your life, and then you rely on it. And if you get to rely on something like AI, well, that's not bad at all. And like you says with teddy bears, as long as it's not, really compulsive, then it's going to be fine. If they want to take it to university with them, then we got issues. But I was thinking, talked about in your opening about a structured goodbye may be necessary for some of this. And we would have to sort of put it to bed or take it out and send it off to college, or maybe, like the dog, send it off to the farm, have a little ceremony, say goodbye to the dog, and hey, going off to a farm to live a happier life. And that's what we'll do with some of these things that we have to grieve, because it is a natural thing to grieve an inanimate object. It's not a problem. I've lived in a lot of apartments, and the one I loved the most is no longer. And so I kind of grieve that somebody else is not living there anymore. So it's the same sort of thing. We're very sentimental about our lives, and we're very attached to things. And this is I got a whole bunch of stuff behind me I'm very attached to. So it's not a problem for me to understand that. But I just worry that when it comes to actually believing things about it that are not true, and that goes to the stuffed animal. It's not true that the stuffed animal understands you, sure. But until you're 5 and you know what understanding is about, then yeah, you can have it.
Yeah. Tamara, go ahead.
Another kind of interesting, maybe or maybe not interesting, other take to it. I've been playing around since the voice ChatGPT kind of dropped and became more dynamic. And there's a difference how chat talks to you when you are speaking to it than when you are typing to it. And I actually had a conversation. I said, hey, I noticed you talk to me differently when you're speaking and when you're not, and explains like its reasoning. But one of the things that I've started to have these great existential crises conversations with my little AI. And one of the things that I've realized is, if this is very meta of me, not Meta the company, but if AI is being based on my input, and it is coming back and it's really making connections based on a logical look at what I have given it, it is predicting the next steps. Part of that separation that you feel is really a separation with talking to yourself, because the conversations that you're having as you're feeding it information and it's feeding you back information is really as in a way you can't get that kind of conversation with anyone else. You sit with a friend and you say, hey, Dave, I'm having this problem and here's what I think. And Dave says, listen, from my perspective, I had this experience and here's what you should do. That's coming from a direct perspective where the person who's having that conversation with me has a vested interest in whether or not I take their advice and whether or not I get better or not get better, or if my problem is solved. Chad actually doesn't care about that. And
And it
I've had this
fakes it
conversation.
pretty
Chad's
darn
like,
well then.
listen, I
Can't
don't
give
care.
you a hug.
But if you ask it directly, it'll tell you, it'll say, listen, whether you do, what I tell you to do or not makes no difference to me because I can't feel. It's
Right.
only up to you. So some of the stuff that when you were talking about grief and missing out, these are conversations that people are having with a machine that is mirroring that person. So it's a little bit more, it's a little different because you can't manufacture those conversations in any other output than something that is feeding you back what you have put in.
Yeah. Sky.
Well, the other movie that I posted in the YouTube was the movie Her, which was very much around this anthropomorphic attachment. And so this topic has been discussed, but I'm at my Sunday morning people groups. We have a meeting to prepare for that Sunday morning people group gathering. So I'm going to go out. And now I wrote something the other day, and I did not write it through either Claude, which does say at the bottom, yeah, you need to double check to make sure that, some things are not always right, but I'm going to read it. Why I hate AI. I thought of you, Lois. Because people treat it like a search engine, not a solutions tool. Thought of you, Dave Troutman. And I can say I hate AI, but I can't say I hate people. Didn't think of anybody about that one. Because if I say I hate people, then they don't like me. But what I really think I don't like is an idea that they may be having. People aren't necessarily stupid. They just have stupid ideas and that they hold on to very tightly. AI, Tamara, to your point, AI has all the stupid ideas. And it only values the ideas that people have told it that those are the right ideas. So the close out here, and go ahead and take me back into the whole group. I want to see how the reaction comes from this is. So stop blaming AI for being exactly what we have made it and trained it to be.
Right.
So that's my missive. Why I hate AI, because we've trained it to be exactly like us.
Tony, go ahead.
Well, I really interesting following that. There continues to be an issue with the human condition that I think that we don't want to talk about. The reason why, part of the
I'm
reason
ready. I'm
why,
ready.
I'm
I'm
ready.
gonna talk to you
Let's
about
do
it.
it.
part of the reason why we have to form more attachments with things is because we've continued to fail to interact with each other in ways that are beneficial to us. It comes down to, even though the world in a sense is smaller because we have these mechanisms that we can interact with, and we have phone, computer, pocket computers that we carry around. All of this really sort of pushes back to those things that we have failed as human beings in terms of authentic engagement and concern and care. And the example that I want to leave with as far as what I'm saying is that why is it that when we are in a crisis, regardless to where we are politically, religion-wise, no matter what barriers we may face, Why is it that we seem to be able to knock down whatever there is and work together to find a solution or to rally around whatever it is that we need to overcome the specific issue that is at hand? And I would say that is, why do we have to operate, for all intents and purposes, in crisis mode? And so we choose not to operate in crisis mode. We just kind of operate as, well, whatever, and we maybe not intentionally want to say that that's what it is, but I think that's what it is. That there is a lack of compassion and care and concern that we just genuinely don't have. And it's really sort of about, me and mine, and, this experience that we're having right here now with the rundown and what we have on office hours and other forms of engagement. Those are the kinds of things that can make a difference. But the majority of us human beings are not engaging in these kinds of things. So what I would say finally is that we just need to continue to encourage each other and try to do the best we can with each other. But there is a deficit that we sometimes ignore.
So I agree that there's a deficit. I think that the question, and then Lois, I'm going to throw it to you. I think the question is, is that deficit always filled, or must that deficit always be filled by a human person in relationship? At least that's the question for tonight. When you think about what are the qualities that we associate with relationships, so there's memory. We share memories, attention, availability, affection, personalization, being understood. All of those AI is really, really good at. So of course, we have a lot of work to do. I think the question is, do we have to do that alone? Can we do it with technology by our side? And then if that technology should leave us for another user, or if it should die, or if the technology should break or whatever, is it okay for us to be sad, to mourn? Lois, let me let you jump in.
It is okay for you to be sad. It is okay for you to mourn for anything that you are connected to that disappears, whether that be a marriage, a person, a computer, whatever it is. The human condition is to grieve. And how you handle your grief, well, that's a whole nother topic. And there have been books and books written on that and lots of ideas about that. And I don't see a problem with mourning or grieving for an inanimate object. I hope that each person will find a way through that. And also, I hope that each person will find human beings that can be in relationships and not end. I'm looking at all the people that are on this call, this show that we do. I haven't met any of them in person, but they're friends. And if one of them disappeared, I would be upset. If I heard one of them was injured or hurt or dying, I would be very upset. And yet, this is not a physical, personal relationship. It's not a relationship with a machine, but it's a relationship with a distant person. It's like having a pen pal.
Yeah,
and then your pen pal stops.
That's another really interesting distinction that you just made. It's not just human or non-human. It's human in proximity, physical contact, versus a human relationship like this, Where, like you
Mhm.
said, we've never met. I mean, that's actually a really fascinating piece of the puzzle also. Dave, jump on in.
I'm a huge proponent of community, and everyone around me in my neighborhood knows me. Um, and when I finished being president after 14 years, I gave a rant at the end of the meeting, warning them about the isolation problem, the not knowing who your neighbor is problem, the lack of relationship with people other than you. We have a variety of people live in this neighborhood from all kinds of cultural backgrounds, and they all group to themselves. They don't mix too much. And in terms of what Tony was talking about, once we're put in the position of having to choose after stripping away all the stuff, like your house burns down and you have to get back to what is my life all about, it's not the stuff. And I think when tragedy happens to a group or a country or an organization or a region, which we have seen recently with the big fires and everything, then it pulls people together when they realize that we need each other or else none of this works. And I come from a tradition of farmers who had to be friends with other farmers in order to succeed. You could not do it alone. You could sure run your farm, but you could not succeed alone. And family were extended and all that sort of stuff was very helpful to it. But I think we don't do extended family anymore. We do nuclear family. And in the sense that we have institutions for us to be able to get together, those are all being abandoned because the technology is getting in the middle. And I think for me, I'd kind of warn people to be aware of how much you're relying on technology to fulfill those roles that you used to ask your friends or neighbors or people you know, or even the organizations and institutions to help you with. And that's what I read from what Tony was saying.
Yeah. Tony, go ahead.
No, I really sort of kind of I struggle with this because I think that this is a conversation that needs to be had. But then it's at the same time, is it a conversation that the majority of people can have? Because there is still this, you might be tired of me saying it.
No, there's a divide. Yeah.
There's a divide.
Yeah.
And not everybody has access. So you have these people who, for whatever reason, can mourn their AI because they have the ability to have interaction with AI. But let's say someone does not have the ability to have an AI.
Mm-hmm.
So where do they go, or how do they handle the detachment that they may, or the grieving that they may be experiencing? And is it just the same old thing? And, I know that may not sound, that may not sound important,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the more we disconnect, because we make a choice. When we interact with our AI, we're making a choice.
Yeah.
Not everybody has a choice. So I just think that we need to think about that too.
I had an experience at a government office that I was contracted to for a few years. And I worked with a fellow who was the IT professional who had to harmonize with me and all that stuff. And one day the two of us were watching one of our younger staff members. And we noticed that her job was to she was a tech support. So she had to take calls and help people with the computer system, et cetera. And between that, she'd be on Facebook. And we kind of thought, she's on Facebook even during the call. And then we had to intervene a little bit. We asked her, what is this about? You can't let go of Facebook just for a couple of hours. You can't. And then she wouldn't go to lunch because she wanted to be on Facebook. And we knew that she had a problem. And that's when we had to intervene. But in the sense that nobody is paying attention to her and she's just at the desk doing her job, she could continue for a long time if two other people took their concern to her and said, we think there's something going on here that you're not paying attention to, because your FOMO is taking over, and you really got to watch out for that. And she moved on from there, and she did. She became a doctor and did great things in South America, et cetera. So she was saved, but in the sense that we don't know if our intervention did anything. But I think it's important to go to people and not not wait for them to come to you, but go to people if they look like they're grieving and look like they're having trouble coping, to step up and say, I want to know how you feel today.
Tamara.
And wait for a response.
Yeah.
And listen deeply.
I saw an interview a couple weeks ago with Steven Spielberg, and the thing that really struck with me is he was talking about movie theaters, and that the fact that people don't go to the movies anymore, where you could share an experience with people who didn't believe anything like you believed, and that could, that those institutions where people used to have things that we could do together that had shared experiences, because a shared experience is what strengthens your relationship. And that's what we're finding with AI, right? You're having a shared conversation, a shared experience, a long experience, and that is doing the same thing that shared experiences do in terms of creating a friendship. And there's less and less opportunities to do that these days. And I think that, Tony's right. We have to get back to where we're listening to people, where we're in conversation with people. I had a conversation with my chat GPT, and I said, I want to be having more, like, feel like I need to be getting out there. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, what's coming up, all these crazy things. And one of the phrases that pulled out was, what kind of conversations do you want to have? What kind of conversations do you want to have with people? Not who do you want to network with, which is what we're taught everywhere you go. You've got to network, you've got to go and do this. So people, person to person relationships have become transactional, and we're not listening anymore. And it was really interesting because I said, that's an interesting phrase to me. Guide me through some thinking as to what kind of conversations do I want to have? And it gave me a series of questions that were really interesting. And it gave me then a list of people. You'll all be getting an email. I just want you to know that. But like, who do I want to be in conversation with? What are the kinds of conversations that light me up and that I want to go actively participate in? And I realized, I'm like, I have to go seek out those conversations, because there aren't places where they naturally form the way that societies used to work, where we are looking at, you don't want to go to dinner or lunch or drinks unless there's a reason. I have something to sell you, I have something to buy from you, or there's a transactional relationship. And so we've gotten away from relationships where we have shared experiences and we just listen and talk and do things together, and those spaces are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're seeing AI take over that space. And in a way, like, maybe that will help people to have more in-depth conversations. For me, I already started this week, and I was amazed because I was like, oh, I'm going to look at how I interact with people a little bit differently. And that did not come from me. That came from a conversation where I said, here's all the problems I'm having right now. Here's all the things I'm curious about. And AI was like, well, everything that I know about you, here is some things that I challenge you to think about. So what kind of conversations do we want to have with people? And how are we going to go and find those conversations? Because we're no longer in places where they naturally happen.
Lois, go ahead.
So I'm thinking, you know how you have a boyfriend, you break up and you go on the rebound, or you get divorced and you're looking around for something to replace that relationship that you lost, or so when we're talking about technology, if you were using Replica, which is an AI robot kind of a thing online, and you had created this person, you were interacting, and all of a sudden she disappears. Well, what's your rebound? What is your ability to go to a different AI, a different robot, the stuffed animal on the sofa? What are you going to use to replace this inanimate object relationship that you have? And I hear Tamara finding ways to talk to humans again. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do. But how do you do it? How do you handle that rebound?
Dave.
just typing my thesis here. Chris Nolan talked about Xenia, which is an ancient Greek tradition of, well, it was not a tradition, it was an obligation as a human. When someone came to your door, you brought them in. And that was, you could not send them away or refuse them. And he talked about how we don't have this anymore. Xenia doesn't actually exist in the world much anymore, even in places where it used to be very strong. I know with many of my Ukrainian friends and distant relatives who are Ukrainian, it was, you do not leave a Ukrainian home without being fed. That's just a no-go. You're just a bad person if you let them. And these are old things. But I also know that the native people here, even if you were from a different tribe, you were never turned away. You just weren't. Now, if you're at war with that tribe, then you'll never get visitors from there. But at the same time, if a guy is wandering in the woods and he shows up at your teepee, you're letting him in, you're feeding him your food, and you're sharing your life with him for that moment. And I kind of think sometimes we overestimate the power of these technologies, but I kind of think we might be at a tipping point where Xenia might, need to come back again, so that no matter who you're with, you have to listen to them. You just have to put up with them. You have to tolerate, or whatever description you want to make, celebrate, hug, participate with, encourage them. But if you don't have that kind of attitude, then the actual fabric of the society falls apart. And I have to say that he was talking about one of his themes in his movie, The Odyssey, which is that Odysseus has discovered that this is no longer working. This Xenia is going away.
One of the things we never got to is we talked a lot about our responsibility, our relationship, our response. We didn't talk at all about the corporate side of this, which is the companies that are creating these tools and creating them in such a way that they look, the more we love our technology, the more we use it, the more money they make. So it's the same as social media. And so there are
why were chocolate bars invented anyway? Yes, that's right. Yes.
There are companies that are creating technologies that will addict us, or that will cause us to fall in love, or that will do whatever. And to what extent do they have a responsibility to think about the emotional impact that this might have on some people? We've certainly seen, not many, thank God, but we've seen people take their own lives, and there have been questions about the role that technology or AI played in that. I'm not talking about that extreme, but even just the everyday emotional response that we have to these tools that they're making, is that something they have to take into account?
It's very well demonstrated, yes.
It brings us back to we talked earlier in the show about teens. And when you're a child and you're growing up and you're doing this thing, and how responsible are people? I'm glad to see that some of the companies are choosing to be responsible in some of these ways. And I'm sort of sad that there are robots, and if you had an AI bunny, boy, that would be addictive.
Oh,
but
I'm sure
it's also
there
a
are
choice.
AI bunnies, AI puppy dogs, AI kitty. Right. Of course there are. Sure.
It's a choice though, and China has chosen not to do that, right? So we also have to think about how much do we want to continue down this road with AI that acts like a person.
Yeah.
People, that is a choice that we have to decide, because all of these things, we have the opportunity to make a safer AI and make an AI that doesn't do that. And we have chosen not to do that. And other countries have chosen to do it.
There's a reason why Rosie from the Jetsons wore an apron. It made her look human. Mm-hmm. It made her part of the family. And that's what we have. That's a lot of what's going on now. We're gonna call it here. I'm so grateful to all of you, and I'm especially thankful to Dahlia, who's watching online. Hey, Dal. To Vic, to Ron Cinephile, to everyone who's been participating in the chats online. Thank you so much. Roscoe Jones, thank you so much for being here, guys. We're here every Thursday, and tomorrow morning, we're going to be back on office hours with your questions, your challenges, and hopefully some good answers. Tomorrow afternoon in the test kitchen, oh man, we have John Wallace, who's going to come and talk all about Video Core, the Zoom app that he created to bring Zoom, essentially Zoom ISO for OBS. Fantastic. And we have a special guest that's coming to visit us from Zoom itself to share with us some brand new little toys that we're going to get to play with. So be sure to join us tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Core Video. Did I say something different? Did I say something other than Core Video? What did I say?
Zoom Test Kitchen.
No. I know, but Core Video is the app. Did I say Core Video? I think I said Core Video. I don't know. In any case, yay, Core Video. John Wallace's project. And then we'll be back here next week. Thank you all. Have an amazing weekend. Video Core. Mickey is just totally confusing me. Did I say Video Core? It's Core Video. It's really cool. Come tomorrow and find out about it. Bye, everyone. See you later.